Okay, this is our day one video, and this is a discussion with Catherine that you can see on the camera, and her husband who's behind the camera, and I'm going to kind of ask the questions and just get it started. So, Catherine, I'm curious as to why do you want to homestead or live intentionally?
I don't think there's any one reason. I mean, I grew up in the country and um, I fought hard to get out of the country and into the city, and now I'm like fighting just as hard to get out of the city and back into the country. I guess it all tracks back. But I want to have more control over what is in our food. I mean, we cook a lot from scratch. I don't buy a lot of processed foods, and I love to cook, and so I do as well as I can in that respect. But I don't have any control over the growing conditions. And we buy organic, and we try to buy local when we can, and that sort of thing. But I really want to have more control over our food. Um, right now there's a lot of stuff going on about supply chain and airplanes crashing into food distribution centers and
Yeah,
farmers getting paid to destroy their crops or
right.
to not grow things. Um, don't even get me started on Monsanto and all of the things that major production, big production farms are putting in their food, the way they treat their animals.
So, would you say this is fear based?
No, I am not afraid. Um, I want more control. It's more about having control over our food and our lifestyle versus fear.
Okay, could you mind if I ask you a couple of questions?
Please.
Okay, this is regarding your history. So, you said you were raised in the country.
Mhm.
How much of your sustenance did you guys raise yourself? Like, how much groceries did you actually go and buy down in the city when you were?
Um, we bought, I mean, I remember going to the grocery store with my dad, and he had his little list, and we bought stuff like toilet paper and that sort of
Sugar,
thing, sugar.
flour. You weren't making your own flour. Right,
No, we
right.
weren't making our own flour.
I know your mom was a baker, so she liked to
Mom
bake. Yeah.
mom made most things from scratch. I do remember a little period of time that she would use cake mixes, but Charles, my kids' background, I don't like. I have Michael will go to the store and buy something on sale, and I'll look at it and I'll throw it in the
You've given
trash.
a lot of the stuff I've bought to people in need. We have a whole separate bag for stuff I accidentally bring home. This is true.
You would
This is
think you
true.
would learn after
Yeah.
8 years. But anyway, back to your question. I'm teasing. I love you. You do a great job. Um, we probably grew, and either from the ground or through cattle, probably 85%,
Really.
90%, I'm guessing, of our food.
In Whitney, Texas.
Uh, yeah.
So
Yeah.
your brothers and sister grew up that way as well.
Yeah. So I was a late in life baby. And so by the time I came along, I had a brother that was 15 and a sister. My sister was 17. And my older brother he was already in college.
How old was
And,
he? 19, 20, 19, 19 or 20 at that time.
and, as the kids grew up and moved away, Dad never shrunk the size of his garden. I mean, he was still producing with the three of us. He was
Really?
still producing the same amount of food that he grew when there were, three grown kids at home, plus he and my mom. Um, funny, we bought chicken. Like, we very rarely had chicken, and so because Daddy did beef, we were cattle.
Well, I'm curious because I've heard some of this before. Why didn't you guys? What was the reasoning not to do chickens? That seems like a no-brainer when you have the acreage and eggs
I
and
think the snakes probably got him. I
okay.
don't.
Well,
No, I don't know really. I wondered why we didn't do chickens.
other farmers in the
I
community did, right? Like you had neighbors that did chickens and
We didn't have neighbors. I lived on several hundred acres of land. We didn't really have neighbors. I don't remember my aunt and uncle. I know that they did have chickens at one point in time. I know that my grandmother had chickens. But I don't know why we didn't do chickens. I don't know
I was
if
curious.
wondered that myself, so I'm not sure. It'd probably be a question for Dan or Shirley, but I'm not sure why we didn't do chickens or eggs or anything. We bought eggs at the grocery store.
You guys down in Whitney, Texas, because it's down from where we live in North Dallas. You guys had a root cellar? Or did you have a storm?
We had a storm cellar, but it was not something that we went into when I was a kid.
Did it flood?
Yes.
Ooh, that's scary.
Yeah. So mom froze a lot of our stuff. She canned a lot of our stuff, and the canning, we had like a pantry, and she kept the canned food, in the pantry.
From your garden?
Mm-hmm. And she made jelly, and we had fruit trees and things like that. So she did. I don't remember her doing preserves, probably because all of us kids preferred jelly over preserves.
Right.
But
slightly different process. You guys had fruit trees as well.
Right.
Figs?
No, we had plum, peach, and apricot.
Stuff that grows relatively well. I wish you had had more information about how long it took to get that garden going, because it was way going before you were born.
Oh, yeah.
So it was probably really well healed for providing fruit and food and everything by the time you came along.
Yeah.
So what are other, so you say you want to live more off-grid, more intentional living. Primarily you want to be in control of your food supply, which makes great sense.
And my lifestyle. We live in the city, and I'm sick of traffic. We're in Houston at the moment. We live in Dallas, but we're in Houston at the moment, and the traffic
in the heart of Dallas
is I just want a quieter, simpler life.
It's understandable.
It's not that I don't want to be around people. Like, I fully intend to get to know people, and wherever we end up lighting. But I want a simpler life.
So
I think in Dallas we're faced with a lot of consumption, and name brands,
and the cost of living.
The cost of living is ridiculous. Even going out to just a restaurant for lunch for my husband and I. It's hard to do for less than $50.
Certainly.
And
that's not no 5-star.
Quite frankly, most of the restaurants we go to, I'm a much better cook. I can cook better food.
Did you ever think about opening a restaurant?
I don't want to be in the restaurant business. I want a easier, simpler life. I don't want to work nights and weekends.
Yeah, tending to your garden is simpler, right? Raising your animals.
It's more, well, it's more the lifestyle. It's leaving the hustle and bustle of
a quieter. You want to see the stars under this.
Don't go there. That's another video.
Under this beautiful place that we live, I should say.
Yeah.
We leave, but we don't go that far.
I want to, I want our animals to be able to run around, hopefully not being chased by snakes and tigers, or not tigers, but coyotes.
Tigers would be something.
Tigers would be.
Mountain lions.
That would be a slightly different experience.
So I know we're going to go and getting off. So you're considering living off grid, not off grid, but let's say semi off grid with a more intentional lifestyle. Where are you considering right now?
So can I backtrack a little bit
Sure.
on what you said?
Sure.
Because my husband and I have talked about how when we started the conversation, we were talking about absolutely living more intentionally. But we didn't want to be disconnected from the grid. We wanted to, electricity and all of that sort of thing. And as we have seen the price of electricity go up and the threat of it being turned off and that sort of thing, we've sort of, I guess probably primarily me, really want to look at more of an off-grid, intentional lifestyle.
Yeah.
And then, but in answer to your question about where we're looking, originally, again, I mean, so we're sharing thought processes. This is our first video. We've done a lot of research, and a lot of times when you research, you end up with more questions versus, more answers, right?
Absolutely.
And so, originally we like I said, we live in Dallas, and we did not want to be farther than 2 hours away.
And why was that?
There were a couple of reasons. At first, we were talking about a bug out place. So we wanted to be able to get to our land. We were going to keep the house in Dallas, and we wanted our land just in case, the stuff hits the fan and to bug out. We wanted it to be within 2 hours.
Basically, within one tank of gas for us and the kids.
Yeah. And we wanted to be close to our kids. Like we have 5 kids between us, and I have 2 sons that serve in the military, and their dad lives in the area, in the Metroplex, not in Dallas, but nearby. And so we didn't want, when they come home, we didn't want them to be torn between, if we were 6 hours away or what have you, we didn't want them to have to choose between spending time with us and spending time with their dad. And so that was another reason that we wanted to be closer in. But now, first of all, land within an hour and a half of Dallas is significantly more expensive per acre.
Currently, as we speak, on, what is today, the 14th of October?
14th, 15th.
14th of October, 2022, it's 30% higher if you are looking at property, and this is raw land, between an hour to an hour and a half outside of the Metroplex. It's gone up because there's a lot of people thinking the same thing.
Yeah, a lot of people are moving out.
Wanting to get even more...
California is moving here, and Texans are moving farther out. They're moving into town, and Texans are moving out of town.
So is your goal to be homesteading before Beto wins the governorship?
God, let's not even go there.
Okay, that's back, but we don't need to get into politics.
I forgot what we
were talking about
where we're looking.
Where we're looking. Yes.
So originally we were looking at within 2 hours of the Dallas city limits. We're looking in a little town called Pittsburgh, East Texas.
And why are you looking there?
So in East Texas, so I grew up in Central Texas, and in Central Texas, it's the landscape is primarily cedar trees and mesquite trees, and less rainfall. But when you start going east and getting farther and farther into East Texas, you'll notice the landscape change just on the side of the highway. So the trees are taller, the grass is greener. The grass is greener on the other side of the county line. So the reason that we're looking more East Texas is because it has a higher rainfall, and if we are going to be on water catchment, which is what we want to do, we need a place with rain, with more
rain.
And
east, as we move and look towards Arkansas, and northeasterly towards Missouri, the landscape, the topography is really beautiful.
Bigger
and cheaper.
Trees,
and cheaper.
and cheaper, more rainfall, and I think a less harsh. It's still hot. I mean, if you're in Texas, it's just going to be hot in the summer, but I think that maybe there's a little bit, it's not quite as intense. Like in Dallas, our garden burns up.
Many reasons, lack of rain and concrete reflection, and I mean, there's a lot of concrete.
The fact that we live right by the
yes.
2 major freeways,
yes.
and so there's a smog thing. So those are the reasons that we're looking more east. Recently, we've got one daughter that's just became a flight attendant, and she is moving out of state. I don't want to mention where on camera. She's moving out of state. We have another daughter that's married, and she and her husband are looking at moving to the West Coast somewhere.
Northwest Coast, yeah.
Yeah.
Pacific Northwest.
And then our other daughter that is here, she and her significant other are looking at moving outside of Texas. So that sort of negates our need to be close to the Metroplex because of the kids. And our boys, I mean, they may come home, I mean, if we're lucky, once a year. The younger one is still in training. He's out of boot camp, but he's still learning his craft, and so he gets to come home a little bit more often. But maybe, I mean, I'm talking instead of once a year, maybe twice a year.
Right.
And that's about to change because he'll be graduated soon.
And in that case, since it's so unusual and it's not a regular visit time, you and I could go into the Metroplex and get an Airbnb or whatever and make it easy for them to see all of us.
That's our plan.
Right.
Yeah.
And they would probably like to come out to the farm.
That's what I'm hoping.
So that's where we're at now, right? We're looking at where.
So we've talked about, and this is the frustrating part. Like, we had it narrowed down. I mean, we were pretty set on Pittsburgh.
On East Texas.
But now, with this realization that we really don't need to be within 2 hours from Dallas. So now that has opened up other opportunities. So the land in Arkansas is cheaper, significantly cheaper per acre.
Yep.
The opportunity to have a river or water running through our land is greater.
Yep.
And just, I'm not putting a tremendous amount, like, that's not the end all be all for us, because we know that anything could happen upstream. Like, if a river is running through somebody else's property, they can divert it. I mean, they can do things that would divert our water. So that's not something, I mean, that would be like, oh, cool, there's a river running through our land.
But like you said, there's a lot of raw property that has multiple tributaries of water running through various portions, a lot more than that we've looked at in Texas.
Right.
Because there's more mountains to give you more streams, and the fact that it's cheaper. The issue that we've just learned about is that it's much more rural. It's harder to the raw land is really raw.
Yeah, there's certain things, like, if we decide, and this is what I am leaning more toward, but again, I've never lived this way, and I think this is my husband's concern, is I really want to do no electricity, like maybe a solar panel that would run a refrigerator and a freezer or something, but like no electricity. So having very raw, rural, undeveloped land and not having to run electricity to it is a benefit, because when you run electricity, and I know this much about it, but I know that you pay for it by the span, and so the more span, I forget what the measurement is on that. The more expensive it is to get it to your property. So,
as we're discussing right now, I think that obviously you want to interview me, ask similar questions, so we have both points of view. And I think we should do videos regarding what we have found by actually doing the full research on the county we're looking for in Texas, the ag exemption benefits of bees, how many hives and things specifically to that part or county that we're looking at, as well as Arkansas, what the laws are.
That's something that we've discovered. Some of what we need to look at is, the property taxes are very high in Texas. And then, so if we go into Arkansas or Missouri, they have personal income tax and
personal property tax
and state income tax in addition to federal. So we have to weigh property tax in Texas versus not having a state income tax or personal
and our property tax can be swayed by ag exemptions depending on where we choose to set up our homestead.
Exactly.
Because currently most counties it's 10 acres, if I'm not mistaken, for cattle, and they have to be doing any type of husbandry where you're actually raising little ones. It could be deer, it can be
He's done
but
more experience.
I've done a little bit more research as far as that, and I'm ignorant when it comes county by county. I have to do more research specifically when we are looking at a county to live in. But from what what I know, what little bit is 5 acres or short, just under 5, to be a beekeeper, and to get the same ag exemption under bees, which we want to do bees anyway. And I know this could be a whole video.
One of the things, though, that you have to be aware of is, and this is something that you would need to double check, because I'm 90% sure this is the case, that if you buy a 10-acre piece of land and you're thinking, okay, I've got 10 acres, I'm going to get an ag exemption. If you put a house on it, your home part,
your footprint,
subtracts an acre from that 10 acres. So if you're going to have a home there, I think you have to have 11 acres of land to accommodate for that 1 acre that's your homestead.
To still qualify
Michael
for the
and
ag.
we don't want to do cattle. We don't eat a whole lot of red meat anyway. I'm not opposed to it, but we just don't. We feel better when we eat primarily fruits and vegetables, and so I don't want the headache of cattle. We may have some goats to help keep the place trimmed down, chickens for eggs, but I have no desire. My dad was a rancher. He had cattle. I have no desire to do that.
Right.
The bees are very exciting to us. We definitely want to do that. We want a garden. I want to make jellies and things like that. I'm learning to ferment, and we.
Were you getting a lot of? Let's just do a shameless plug. Where are you getting a lot of your information?
Off Grid with Doug and Stacy.
Doug and Stacy. Doug's the city man who now looks Amish.
Yeah, that was one of the things that they did. If I'm not mistaken, by accident, they ended up they bought their land, not realizing they were in Amish country. And so they learned a tremendous amount of many skills from the Amish. And they're passing that on. If you are looking at homesteading or just living a healthier lifestyle, man, Off Grid with Doug and Stacy.
Yeah,
2 thumbs up.
They're pretty awesome.
I will tell you, if you're looking for them on Facebook, they do have Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, but their Facebook page is Homestead Homies. Someone has put up a Off Grid with Doug and Stacy Facebook page, and that is not.
They're trying to ride the popularity of their.
You want Homestead Homies if you're looking on Facebook. But if you're looking on YouTube, Off Grid with Doug and Stacy, they have. I've learned how to ferment from Stacy's videos.
Yeah.
We learned how to put together our raised beds from Doug. Like, they post fabulous videos on how to do things, and so we are incorporating pieces of that lifestyle. Even though we live in the city, we are. I'm trying to learn how to grow. I'm trying to learn how to plant. I'm learning what works and what doesn't. And, this is kind of practice wherever you are. Start practicing. Stacy has a fermenting book, but even her fermenting videos, I was doing, before I got her cookbook, I was doing, let's see, what did I do? I did several types of sauerkrauts and, vegetables and things like that, and then I got her fermenting book, and my favorite thing that I've done now is the salsa, fermented salsa.
Mm-hmm.
But
Delicious.
the downside is that it's so hot where we are that I have to put all of my ferments in the refrigerator to stop the fermenting process. So this is a whole nother video.
I know, we're tapping into a lot of stuff that we're going to do separate videos on.
Yeah.
So let's not go down that rabbit hole right now, because we're going to save that. So basically, day one, I wanted to interview you as to why you wanted to live off grid. So you've said you want to live more intentionally. You want be in control of your food supply for the most part. Are you talking about growing wheat and grinding your own wheat? Are you looking at that?
No.
Have you thought of that?
We do have some food storage Just, I don't know that we have a year's worth, but we definitely have been prepping, just in case. And I did get wheat berries, so I can grind it and make flour, or I can plant it and grow my own wheat. There's different options there. I don't know that I really want to do that long term. I don't want to grow.
Yeah,
wheat.
I think it takes quite a bit of acreage to do.
I don't want to do that.
Yeah, so we're going to need to be within a 30 to 45 minute drive of some type of supply wherever we go.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the negatives of briefly looking at Arkansas, is that although mileage wise they're close by, with the mountains and whatnot, you're talking about taking a 10-mile drive taking an hour.
Yeah, but that goes back to adapting to the lifestyle.
Of course.
Like right now, Michael goes to the grocery store and I start cooking something and realize I forgot to put something on the list. He can go back to the store and get it because he's 5 minutes away. What we would have to adapt to is, even if the store is an hour away, you don't just run. You make a intentional trip into town and make sure you have everything on your list.
So this video right now is at a little over 26 minutes. Did you want me to ask you what kind of dwelling you want to live on? Or do you want to save that for another video? Or do you have anything else to add regarding why?
One thing...
Because this is really the why.
Yeah, one other reason that we have looked into going, more eastern or northeastern, does have to do with food storage, because in the cooler temperatures, it's easier to dig a root cellar and have food storage in a root cellar versus needing a refrigerator.
I wouldn't mind putting a bedroom in the root cellar so I could sleep at night.
We had talked about that. Was one of the things that we had talked about.
Yeah.
That's another video, but that was something that we had talked about, was making the root cellar big enough that we could put a bed in there, so that if we are living with no electricity and it's hot, that we can go and sleep down there and be cooler. That that was one of the thoughts that we've had that we need to investigate. So I think I've said about all I want to say with the why.
Okay. We got a lot to talk about because this is day one, and you're going to interview me, and we can slice and edit and put these videos together as far as putting something out there. You can interview me next, or we can do another subject, but this is day one, and as to the why. All right. Thank you, Catherine. Bye.
Bye.